Good evening and thank you for joining us at the Southerners Sentinel. The date is December 22nd, 1863. Tonight we will continue to follow the crisis in the South. As you all will recall, we reported to you that in the wake of the Union dissolution that the U.S. President has issued that the U.S. has called a proclamation declaration in which their President, Mr. Lincoln, has declared that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are and henceforward shall be free. He has said, by virtue of power and for the purpose aforesaid, I do order and declare that all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of states are and henceforward shall be free, and that the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authorities thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of said persons. The Southern states of America have realized this as a personal and tyrannical attack upon our states, our economy, and our general welfare of liberty and happiness, which required secession. We also know from sources in the North that the measure was met by a good deal of opposition, as many Northerners are unwilling to fight for their freedom of blacks. However, it had the effect on British opinion that Lincoln desired, which is a scandalous and ungentlemanly way to conduct politics. These Northerners may very well call themselves British again. The honor of our Constitution and true intent of our forefathers is at stake on this continent, and we as people should be united and cautious. Prepare yourselves, arm your women and feeble men. The Ladies' Aid Society requests that donations of food, blankets, and bandages continue to be brought to your local churches, and reminds everyone not to forget to show your colors by wearing your cockades, especially when you are in town. According to Miss Page of Spartanburg, Southern Carolina, the Reverend Brockman addressed his congregation at First Baptist Church with his prayer that God saw fit to release us from the tyranny of British rule in 1776. May he also see fit to bring our 13 states of the Confederate States of America into independence through the battlefield and the blood of his faithful servants. Those faithful servants certainly have heard the almighty call. Our Honorable General Lee had been led to yet another victory. General Lee, in the brave manner which he was able to fend off 14 of the most cutthroat Yankee attacks at Mary Heights, again led us to victory. This time in Chancellorsville, Virginia, with the honorable win for our cause. The good Lord knows that we of all people understand that victory does not come without a great cost. As we had learned that General Jackson, our own old blue light, has been shot. However, the army was able to outmaneuver the Yankee scoundrel General Hooker. Our faithful troops led us to this strong victory with outstanding but grave consequences, as the Union Army surrendered 17,000 troops, but little was left to confront us from the sacrifice of our Confederate Army losing 12,000 precious souls. It is times such as these that we need to pray ever harder for the safety of our brave Southern men and the causes for which they fight. The Lord will bless our prayers and our men with victory and return them home to see their sacrifices were not in vain, such as he had done just as few short months following those valiant victories in Virginia, when the battle was brought to Chickamauga, Georgia, where the good Lord saw fit to lead Confederate Army of Tennessee to a sanctified victory, and we could not be more pleased. We have recently learned that Abraham Lincoln had addressed an angry mob of Northerners in New York. Those Northerners claimed this is a fight for freedom, yet they themselves are being forced into a war which they themselves do not want to be involved in. while our men have to take up arms and stand proud with their honor against the harshest of circumstances. General Jackson himself has declared that the patriot volunteer fighting for our country and his rights makes the most reliable soldier on earth. Now the prairie lawyer dares to question our moral principle and authority by announcing that our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether the nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. While their president is smooth with his words, his statements are simply outrageous and taken out of context. However, Vice President Stevens realized the true intention of our founding fathers when he said, "Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite ideas. Its foundations are laid. Its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery's subordination to the superior race is his natural and moral condition. We not only boast that the white slave trade is more exacting and fraudulent in fact, though not in intention, than black slavery, but we also boast that it is more cruel in leaving labor and family out of the pittance which skill or capital have allowed him to retain. When the day's labor is ended, he is free, but is overburdened with the cares of family and household, which make his freedom an empty and delusive mockery. The free laborer must work or starve. He is more of a slave than the Negro because he works longer and harder for less allowance than the slave, and has no holiday because the cares of life with him begin when its labors end. He has no liberty and has not a single right. No man, even as smooth-talking as Mr. Lincoln, can wage war against his fellow man. Demand the freedom of well-cared-for slaves, but continue to neglect poor white slaves that he calls free laborers, that work in northern factories and then force men to fight against the cause which they do not support, can speak of freedom or equality. It is a very curious matter indeed. Some inquiries questioned whether this Lincoln is truly a northern brute after discoveries had led us in another direction. Hearing him utter the words, "If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it." Sources had also revealed that during his first inaugural address, Lincoln declared that he had no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with slavery in the states where it exists. He then reiterated his pledge in his first message to Congress on July 4th, 1861. So we must ask, is Mr. Lincoln a reasonable man? Is he simply confused? Or is he merely using slavery in his own agenda to further his own political career? For now he declares, the government of the United States will give the same protection to all its soldiers, and if the enemy shall sell or enslave anyone because of his color, the offense shall be punished by retaliation upon the enemy's prisoners in our possession. It is therefore ordered that for every soldier of the United States killed in violation of the laws of war, a rebel soldier shall be executed. And for every one enslaved by the enemy or sold into slavery, a rebel soldier shall be placed at hard labor on public works and continued at such labor, until the other shall be released and receive the treatment due to a prisoner of war. While his prior statements reaped potential of protecting slavery within our states and confirmed that even a backwards prairie lawyer understands it, which our Vice President Stevens has been trying to impart all along, that the truth announced it is impossible to war successfully against a principle in politics. They are attempting to make things equal, which which the Creator had made unequal. We must continue to fight for the rights to provide for the welfare of our slaves, who without our care and provisions would otherwise starve. Who would care for them when ill? Shall they be dumped in the putrid refuse gutters of the North in their time of old age? Let us also not forget that the bread riots of the spring, the Northern attempted to starve out their own brothers and cousins in an attempt to gain the advantage in this war. Now they have threatened to kill those same brothers and cousins over the very economy which built their factories. They are biting the very hand that fed them, and which created their prosperous nation. To think of what other horrors might happen to us, let alone what might happen to our well-fed and happy Negroes, is an unimaginable terror. It is with divine benevolence that we continue to support the cause of our Southern economy, life, and honor, not only for the sake of our brethren, but for the sake of our Negroes as well. Thank you for tuning in to the Southerners Sentinel. Y'all have a blessed night, and remember our cause and soldiers in your nightly prayers. Good night.